Alrighty guys, hello and greetings from Lima. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing 10 surprising things that might shock you if you've never been to Lima before, but you should definitely know before you plan a trip. So the first thing I want to talk about is the weather. Lima can actually be a very gray city, and that might be kind of surprising because it's along the coast. You would expect blue skies and sunshine all the time, but it's a city that gets a lot of fog, and it's usually quite gray and foggy in the mornings, but the sun burns the fog as the day progresses. So normally in the afternoons you do get those blue skies and nice temperatures. You may also be surprised to know that it doesn't rain a lot in Lima. It may look quite green, especially here along the coast, but Lima is built on a desert. It is very dry, very arid, and the green coastline that you see today, that is all man-made. That is because the city is investing in beautiful gardens and watering the greenery, and you actually see a lot of gardeners and landscapers whenever you walk along the coast, just working hard to keep the city as green as possible, but it is a desert. Another surprising thing about Lima is that you'll probably experience a few tremors during your visit. So Lima sits along the Ring of Fire. They do get earthquakes here. Now, earthquakes aren't very frequent, but tremors are. I actually felt two this morning in bed at around 6:15 a.m. And it's just like a very subtle movement. You might feel, some swaying if you're lying down in bed. Or one thing that happens quite frequently when I'm at my grandma's house is that the chandelier will start to sway, and you hear the glasses clinking, clink, 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 and you're like, oh, there's a tremor. Also, Sam and I, we taught here in Lima. We did a teaching practicum a few years ago. And I remember once they evacuated the whole school into a central courtyard because they had quite a strong tremor. Now, I didn't even feel it, so it really depends. Some people tend to feel them a bit more. They're just more aware, and sometimes you just don't. So that's another thing to be mindful. Don't be scared, but do expect tremors because they do happen. Another surprising thing about Lima, foodies will be very happy to hear this, is that there are so many Michelin-starred restaurants, but also local eateries just serving delicious food. So Lima is considered the foodie capital of South America. The cuisine is just divine, mouth-watering. Whenever Sam and I are about to return to Lima, we're talking about all the dishes we want to eat as soon as we get back. So make sure to try different styles of food that you're not really too familiar with. There's a lot of fusion cuisine here. Two of the more famous types of fusion food are Nikkei cuisine, which is the combination of Japanese and Peruvian food. And you also have Chifa, which is Chinese and Peruvian food. And it's really interesting because they'll use techniques from Japan or China, but then they're adding Peruvian flavors, Peruvian ingredients. So it's a really nice mix. Peruvian food is one of my favorites in the world, so don't miss out on that. Another thing you may not expect, considering Lima is a seaside city, a seaside destination, is that it's not really a swimmer or beachgoer's paradise. That's right, the water here is very cold. We are on the Pacific Ocean, and the currents are also really strong, and you get some big waves. So it's not exactly the Caribbean or the Mediterranean, if that's what you are used to. This is a really good beach for surfers. You see a lot of surfers out in the water. Now, they are wearing their full body wetsuits because, as I mentioned, the water is very cold. You wouldn't want to go into the water just wearing your board shorts, so keep that in mind. If you want to visit some beach towns, you can head a bit further south outside of Lima. The water is still going to be cold, the waves are still going to be pretty choppy, but you do get some nice scenery, some nice beaches. So you can get a taste of that if you head further south. Traffic is another thing to contend with here in Lima. There is a lot of traffic. On a weekend, it can take up to 2 hours to cross the city. I am telling you this because we've done it before with family wanting to visit a restaurant that was a bit more inside the city, going from Miraflores to La Molina. So yeah, just expect for things to take longer. This is really important to keep in mind when it comes to catching your flight out of Lima, when you have to go to the airport. don't cut it short. Maybe give yourself an extra hour because you just never know what the traffic situation is going to be like. Alrighty, this is South America. You do get some protests, demonstrations, strikes happening here in Lima. I'm pretty sure I have experienced one such event during each of my visits here, and I've been coming here for a long time because I have family here in Peru. So yeah, don't be too shocked, don't be too surprised. You are going to see like local security, you are going to see a police presence, and you will also see the military, often with weapons. It's just for added security. It's part of living here in Lima. It's kind of the norm. You really get used to it the longer you are here. So the thing about protests in Lima and demonstrations and strikes and things like that is that it can affect your experience as a traveler, because sometimes it'll halt transportation. Buses just won't be running at all. And they'll also put up barriers in the old town around Plaza de Armas or Plaza Mayor, like the main square. And a lot of the main tourist attractions will just be blocked, and there's going to be military presence there. So it does affect your sightseeing experience. That is one thing to keep in mind. Okay, now let's talk about day trips. There are a lot of day trips that you can do from Lima, or at least they are advertised as day trips. You will see day trip offers to places like Huacachina, Ica, Paracas, Islas Ballestas, Nazca. Now, the thing is, you could visit these places on a day trip, but I think they are way better as overnight destinations. Maybe go spend 2 or 3 days down there. The thing is, to reach a lot of these places, you're going to be driving 3 to 4 hours each way. Can it be done in a day? Yes, a lot of tour operators do it, but that means you're going to be spending 6 to 8 hours sitting on a bus. And that sounds like a lot to me. So if you really want to visit these destinations, I would recommend making it an overnight trip. That way you have more time to enjoy the activities these destinations have to offer, and you won't be feeling so stressed, tired, maybe even a little burnt out at the end of the day. Another thing I would recommend for Lima is to have some cash on you, some soles. Yes, you can pay with debit and credit card at most places nowadays, but you're still going to find people selling things on the street or in little shops where they are going to want cash. And if you don't have cash on you, you'll miss out your chance to pick up a really cool and unique souvenir. So yeah, keep some cash. There are lots of ATMs around. You can withdraw soles or US dollars. Now, I would recommend bringing some US dollars with you when you come to Peru and then exchanging that into soles once you arrive, because the ATM fees are a little bit high. It's the equivalent of 10 US dollars for every withdrawal, plus whatever your bank charges you. And as far as I've seen, they only let you withdraw 200 US dollars at a time. So it can get a little bit pricey, especially if you are spending lots of money in Lima, if you're paying for lots of your tours or maybe hotels in cash. So that's another thing to consider. Okay, another thing that shocked me here in Lima is that taxis do not have taximeters. I first encountered this when I was teaching at a local school here in Lima, and sometimes I would have to take a taxi back to the house. And it was just shocking. Like, you would get into the taxi, you would tell them where you're going, and they would give you a price. And I never knew if it was fair or not because there wasn't a taximeter to like track the distance you were traveling. And yeah, it was just a little bit odd for me. The way it worked a few years ago is that taxi drivers had a little booklet inside their taxi that had the fares from, you know, Miraflores to Barranco, Miraflores to the old town in Lima, and just point A to point B. And I would ask them the fare and they would show me in their little booklet, like, this is where we're starting, this is where we're going, this is the price. Nowadays, most people have smartphones. There are a whole bunch of different apps, so you can download one of those transportation apps to, you know, request vehicles, request taxis, and it'll actually tell you what the fare is going to be. You know what you're going to be paying ahead of time, which I think is a lot better, because when you're a tourist and you're getting into a taxi and asking what's the price, you're a bit more likely to get ripped off, because taxi driver can choose whatever fare comes into mind. So the apps are a lot better in that sense, and also they're a lot quicker when it comes to picking you up. Another thing I want to mention are the best neighborhoods for tourists, specifically for tourists to come and stay here in Lima. I would say the top 3 that I recommend to any travelers are Miraflores, Barranco, and San Isidro. Now, I know people are going to tell me, no, that's not the real Lima, you're going to be in a bubble. But the thing is, that's where most of the tourist attractions are concentrated. That's also where you have the most hotels, the most restaurants, the most options. And they're also very pretty, scenic, beautiful neighborhoods here along the coast. They're well taken care of. I would say Miraflores is probably the most popular. You've got the Malecón, the boardwalk or the beach walk here along the coast. Beautiful gardens, lots of flowers, palm trees. So it's just really nice as a tourist to stay here and be able to walk in the mornings. I like Barranco because it's more like artsy, hippie, colorful buildings, lots of street art. You have some older homes, like the old traditional construction, so it just has a bit more of a colonial feel. And again, lots of great eateries in that neighborhood. And then I would say San Isidro is a little bit more upscale. You've got fancier hotels, you have the golf club, lots of restaurants again. There's an old olive tree grove. So those are the best specifically for tourists. Yes, you'll be going into the old town of Lima to visit some of the attractions there, but as a tourist, those are always my top 3. You can still explore the rest of the city, but I would say those are the best places to stay. So those are the things that have shocked or surprised me the most about Lima, and I think it would honestly shock most travelers visiting Lima for the first time. But now it is over to you. If you have visited Lima before, chime in the comments. Let me know what surprised you the most. What do you think travelers need to know before they visit the city? So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Ta-ta!